Good evening and welcome to our November 7th Board of Selectmen meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start our meeting with the reading of the agenda. We will go over our October 24th meeting minutes. We will then move on to community relations announcements and open forums. Then move on to appointments and resignations, under which we have 3 items. Item number 1 is an appointment for the assistant town accountant. Number 2 is an appointment for the civilian traffic commission. And number 3 is an appointment for the 4th dispatcher. We have 2 scheduled appointments tonight. We have a 6:45 public hearing for a transfer license and a 6:50 appointment for a bi-weekly payroll and weekly warrants payable. Under new business, we have 2 items. Number 1 is the police department, a request for a 4th sergeant, and number 2 is longevity. Under old business, we have 1 item. That's a special 1-day liquor license application. We'll then move on to committee reports, Board of Selectmen policy reviews, the student select persons report, the town administrator's report, and then finally, any other business unknown at the time of posting. And our next regular meeting will be November 21st, and we do plan to go into executive session, exit executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment. With that, what are the board's wishes with our October 24th special meeting minutes? Mr. Singer.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Motion second. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. And what are the board's wishes of our regular meeting minutes for October 24th?
Through the chair,
Ms. Noble.
I would move that we accept the minutes.
Second?
Thank you. Motion is second. Discussion. Seeing none, move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. And we'll now move on to community relations, announcements, and open forums. And we'll read the announcements. The Board of Building Regulations and Standards announced that the 9th edition of the Massachusetts Building Code will be published Friday, October 20th, with a full implementation date of January 2nd, 2018. Complete applications received between October 20th and December 29th have the option of being pulled under the 8th or 9th edition. Permit applications received after December 29th will have to fully comply with the 9th edition. The Town Hall will be closed on Thursday, November 9th, in observance of Veterans Day, and the Town Hall will be closed on Thursday, November 23rd, in observance of Thanksgiving. Representative Peter Durant will be holding office hours on Monday, November 13th at 10:30 a.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room at the Town Hall. A Christmas fair, sponsored by the Golden Age Club, will be held Saturday, December 2nd, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Charlton Senior Center. The Charlton Christmas Concert and Tree Lighting Ceremony will be held Sunday, December 3rd at 4:30 p.m. at the Charlton Town Common and Town Library. Once again this year, all of the singing and performances will take place at the Charlton Public Library in Dexter Hall on the 2nd floor. There will be individual singers and performances by students from Shepherd Hill Regional High School, Charlton Middle School, the Federated Church, and the Pastor Prime Chorale. The Girl Scouts Christmas tree and decorations on the common. And finally, a message from the fire department. Please keep space heaters at least 3 feet away from things that will burn. Be sure that the heater is on a hard surface that will not tip over. Are there any other announcements? Is there anyone here for open forum? Seeing none, we'll move to our appointments of resignation. And our first one is an appointment for an assistant town accountant. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. As you know, we have a new finance director, and many changes are taking place to bring the town into full compliance. With the amount of work being more anticipated, she has asked for an assistant to help. Monica Redmond, our assistant human resource director, has been assisting her, and we would ask the board to appoint Ms. Redmond as the assistant town accountant for 10 hours a week at $21.45 an hour, which will be paid out of the finance director's accounts, and will also bring Ms. Redmond to 32 hours a week. She would hold both of the titles, and because you would be giving her the assistant town accountant designation, she would be able to get certified and be able to, if our town accountant wasn't there, to also, we're kind of trying to cross-train.
Thank you. For a yearly cost, it's an extra $35,000 a year, give or take?
Would you just do the math?
Quick math.
Okay.
Sounds right? Are there any questions or actions from the board?
Through the chair,
Yep.
what effect will her benefits now have on the budget? Will she have additional benefits? Will there be an additional cost?
No.
Okay,
She already receives benefits. She's already over the 20 hours.
okay.
So it's actually a higher and best use of her.
Very good, thank
So
you.
we're really excited, and she is in the audience if you haven't met Monica, and Donna is here also, our finance director, if you have any questions for them.
Thank you for being here. What are the wishes of the board?
Through the chair,
Ms. Noble?
I would move that we approve the appointment of Monica Redmond and add to her additional duties to support the finance director.
Second.
Thank you. A motion is second. Discussion. The amount of work anticipated, can you just elaborate a little more on that? What kind of work? Is it payroll? Is it preparing the books? If you don't mind.
Thank you.
Everyone come on up.
So we've had a little bit of transition when you combine treasurer collector and you moved, part of what was being done in the treasurer's office was payroll, that got moved into HR. So there's a piece of payroll that HR is doing, which Monica does now, and there's a piece of payroll that I'm doing in accounting. Problem is, neither one of us can ever be out for a day of any given week, because there's no backup coverage. It's really important for me to have someone that can sign a warrant. Otherwise, you can't have a payroll or a payables warrant go through without an assistant town accountant signature if I'm not available. So, different things, payroll, payables. We haven't gone much beyond that. We're trying to do some work on doing electronic transfers from payroll into the ledger. I'm hoping to bring her up to speed on doing journal entries and reconciliation as well, and hopefully start getting her into some of the training programs too.
And I'd also just like to add that I have been going towards my bachelor's degree in accounting, so this is an exciting opportunity for me to actually kind of work in it, so I just wanted to add that piece.
Thank you. Great news to hear. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our second appointment, and that's the appointments for the Civilian Traffic Commission. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. At the board's October 10th meeting, you formed the Civilian Traffic Commission, which will consist of 5 members plus 1 alternate member. Chief Maxfield will be the sustaining member. 2 letters of interest have been received, one from David Smolsky and Richard McGrath. What are the board's wishes?
Thank you, Ms. Craver. And what are the board's wishes? I'll start the discussion with, it would be 5 members, 5 public members, correct?
It doesn't necessarily have to be all public members. I think that Richard McGrath, being on the police department, would be an excellent choice. And I believe that a mix of citizens as well as some employees would be helpful.
I imagine a lot of people involved in the 508 were very concerned about traffic. I would ask to reach out to them and let them know this opportunity where they can provide input for not only that, but other parts of town for safety.
We have been running it on cable, so it is there also.
Perfect.
So,
if we appoint these 2 members, we'll have enough for a quorum if they all were there.
Chief, do you want to speak to that? I've actually put this commission under the chief's auspices, so his recommendations.
Good evening, Chief. So my question was, if we appoint the 2 interested candidates for the Civilian Traffic Commission, will that be enough to get it started, to actually start having meetings?
Yeah, well, we can start having dialogue, and so what we can run with, I've communicated with both Officer McGrath and Dave Smolsky by email, so we can get that up and running. Yes, sir.
Perfect. And then afterwards, we would have, with you as a member as well, we would have 3 positions, including the alternate member.
Yes.
To appoint
Yes, sir.
eventually.
Yep.
Sounds good. Right. What are the wishes of the board then?
Was the motion made already?
Whether, in regards to appointing Mr. Smolsky and Mr. McGrath as members of the Civilian Traffic Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. And just to clarify, that is Richard McGrath, not John McGrath.
Thank you.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to appoint the chief as well, Ms. Graver?
Did you get appointed already? I would include the chief then.
Mr. Singer, would your so moved motion include Chief Maxfield as well?
Yes.
Does your second include that as well?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Are the
Thank you very
individuals
much.
here this evening?
I know Chief Maxfield is.
I don't believe they're here.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
No, are the gentlemen here that asked to be appointed?
No.
Okay. Shall we send them letters telling them so?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, do they have to be sworn in?
They do, so we will send them appointment letters.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much. Any more discussion on that? All right, we'll now move on to a third item under appointments and resignations as the 4th dispatcher. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir, at the board's October 10th meeting, upon request by Chief Maxfield, you voted to allow the hiring of a 4th full-time dispatcher. Interviews were held on November 2nd at the Charlton Public Library. The interview panel consisted of Sergeant Heath Cloutier, Lieutenant Greg Lewandowski, Lead Dispatcher Penny Ryan, and Captain Dean Babineau of the Charlton Fire Department. As a part of the process, Human Resource Director Jessica Lorenz was consulted and provided guidance. Out of the 5 candidates interviewed, the interview panel made a unanimous decision and would ask the board to appoint Paul Morelli of Charlton as the top candidate. Mr. Morelli has been employed with the Charlton Police Department for 7 years as a part-time dispatcher and auxiliary police officer. And I believe the chief has brought him here to introduce you, if you guys want to come up.
Yeah, Mr. Morelli and Chief, would you please like to come up?
While they're coming up, I think you know how many years we've been talking about a 4th dispatcher, and I think Penny is here as the lead dispatcher, just to make sure we kind of go through this.
Absolutely, and to answer for the number of years,
It's not a
it's been too
rumor.
many years.
Yeah.
Right. Chief, did you want to speak to this for a quick moment?
No, the summary was pretty good. We left that to my subordinates to pick the appropriate candidate, and I believe we have that.
Mr. Morelli, welcome.
Thank you.
I will then entertain a motion from the board.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer.
I move to appoint Mr. Paul Morelli to the position of 4th full-time dispatcher for the town of Charlton.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
About time.
All right.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
I'm hobbling slowly.
Yeah.
You got the wounded up here. Congratulations.
Another thank you to everyone involved, to Ms. Ryan and everyone on the interview committee for making this happen. And all the lobbying over the years to make this finally happen. It's good to see. They were finally fully staffed down there. And with that, we are right on time for our scheduled appointment, for a public hearing for a transfer of license. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Attached, you'll find a public hearing notice for the transfer of liquor license presently owned by ANYA LLC, doing business as Oxbow Variety and Package Store, to Om Moretti Incorporated, doing business as Oxbow Variety. Rashish Patel, manager. This license is for an annual all-alcohol package store located at 3 Oxbow Road, Charlton, Mass. All the paperwork has been completed and will be sent to the ABCC for approval, pending the board's approval of the transfer of liquor license.
Thank you very much. And I'll open the public hearing by reading the public hearing notice. The Charlton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 7th, 2017, at 6:45 p.m. at the Charlton Town Hall, 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room to act on a request to transfer the retail packaged goods store, all kinds of alcoholic beverage liquor license currently held by ANYA LLC, doing business as Oxbow Variety and Package Store, 3 Oxbow Road in Charlton, Mass. 01507, to Murdy Incorporated, doing business as Oxbow Variety. Anyone wishing to be heard on this matter should appear at the date and time specified or submit any concerns in writing. And I'll declare the public hearing open at 6:46 PM. Ms. Craver, did we receive any concerns in writing?
No, we did not.
Thank you. I will open up to discussion. Sir, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure, if it pleases the board, my name is Arthur Perlman. If I may approach the board?
Absolutely.
I give you an affidavit which can be used for the ABC to show that the
Thank
matter
you.
was properly advertised in the paper.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perlman.
Thank you. I represent Hiro Swadia and Maruti Inc. They're seeking a transfer of the package store license for the all alcohol license currently held by Anya Limited Liability Company, its business as Oxbow Variety at 3 Oxbow Road in Charlton. I just submitted to you the affidavit and exhibits relative to published notice. Mailed notice is not required. Maruti Inc. is a mass corporation. Hiro Swadia is the sole officer, director, and shareholder. Rakesh Patel is the manager, or the person we're requesting to be approved as manager on the license. Ms. Swadia is currently living in Southbridge, Massachusetts. Ms. Swadia owns a business in Salem, Massachusetts, known as Friendly Mini Mart, which is a convenience store with a liquor license. Rakesh Patel lives in Sturbridge. He has experience working at Country Farm, which is just down the street here, and that also is a convenience store with a liquor license, so they both have experience. Mr. Patel will be spending at least 40 hours a week at this new establishment. He'll be going from this one and moving to that one if you approve the transfer. The business currently operating at 3 Oxbow Road in Charlton is open 7 days a week with hours of 9 a.m., I believe, till 10:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 to 9 on Sunday. That's my understanding. We're looking to increase it by 1 hour to open instead of at 8 o'clock, instead of 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock Monday through Saturday, keeping all the other hours the exact same as they are now. Also, the layout of the store will remain as it is now. Ms. Swadia and Mr. Patel, already having been in the liquor business, are familiar with the laws relative to the sale of liquor, Chapter 135. Additionally, Ms. Swadia has completed her TIPS training, and she is renewing it because it did just expire, so she's renewing it. Mr. Patel has also been TIPS trained, and his has not expired, so he's still falls under his certificate. They intend to obviously uphold all the statutory laws, and they'll learn any rules or regulations here in Charlton that might be different or unique from that. And they'll familiarize themselves with any of those so they can uphold them. Although already being here, I believe Mr. Patel is familiar with the town. I respectfully request that the board approve the transfer of license.
Thank you, Mr. Perlman, for that information. Are there any comments from the board?
It just says not only a change of ownership, but also one of management.
Yes.
I will also ask that this approval, does that come with the time change, or is that a separate application or mechanism?
Oh,
So-
no, that'd be the same. That's just telling you the hours, because hours are statutorily
Okay.
allowed from 8 to 11.
Yep. Noted. I know one thing in the past about that location is that there has been some issues with serving under 21 individuals, and just in town every once in a while, that will be an undercover person, and they'll sell alcohol and they'll be hit by that. So just making sure that, the new owners realize that, we do pay attention and we do check.
Absolutely.
So. Okay. Are there any comments from anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. The public hearing is now closed at 6:50. And what are the board's wishes of approving the transfer of liquor license as presented?
Through the chair.
Ms. Noble.
I would make a motion that we approve the transfer of liquor license presently owned by Anya LLC, DBA Oxbow Variety and Package Store, to Maruti Incorporated, DBA Oxbow Variety.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to town.
Well, all right, and once again, right on time for our next
Yes.
scheduled appointment. I'm finally getting this down.
Good
We
job.
have a 6:50 appointment for a bi-weekly payroll and weekly warrants payable. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. At the board's September 26th meeting, I brought forward a recommendation from the finance management team to change payroll to bi-weekly. Since the same employees are being paid every week, it can be assumed that there is a 50% savings in the time and effort that is involved with processing payroll bi-weekly as opposed to weekly. It was also noted that accounts payable is processed bi-weekly, and many times emergency AP warrants are being produced on off weeks. There is no savings in the time and effort to pay a AP bi-weekly. Since the vendors change every warrant, there are just twice as many vendors to process every other week. The finance management team asked the board to support the change of accounts payable to every week so that the town can avoid asking the board to support the change of, so the town can avoid fines and late charges being assessed for late payments and allow the departments to take advantage of discounts for quick payments. We asked the board to approve these changes effective January 1st, 2018. It was discussed at the time that the unions would need to agree to the biweekly payroll as well. Jessica, our Human Resource Director, and Donna, the Finance Director, were reviewing the union contracts, and they are here with their findings. So if you guys would like to come up, and I also see Joanne here as our treasurer collector, so you have
The whole team.
whole
Wow.
finance team here.
All right.
With the exception of the assessor.
Correct.
That one.
Still up.
Almost the whole team. So thank you for looking into us. I know this was brought to our attention that it was a great way to not only save money, but also save on time and resources. So I know, Ms. Lorenza, you and your team looked into whether it would impact the union. So if you would like to comment on that, that'd be appreciated.
Sure. So upon review of our four union contracts, one contract, the highway union, actually has language allowing for there to be a change to biweekly. The other three do not have that language, but they also do not have language that stipulates that the pay has to be weekly either. And in reviewing all of the sections of all of the collective bargaining agreements, I was not able to find any language that specifies that it has to be paid. There is some reference in a couple of them to the pay, the weekly pay, but it is more of a logistical reference when talking about like longevity or something. So from what I can see, the change to biweekly would be viewed as a management right to change operational processes. There's no reduction in the pay as a result of the change in the frequency. There is a reduction in the cost to the town to process the payroll on a biweekly basis instead of weekly. So my recommendation would be to move to a biweekly payroll,
Okay.
but to notify the unions.
Thank you. Ms. Noble?
What would that reduction in cost be to the town to do the payroll biweekly? How much are we saving?
Sure. The reduction, the annual reduction in the cost would be $6,528.02.
I'm sorry, there's 6,000,
$6,528.02
and that was for, again, how, yearly, weekly? I didn't catch that.
annually
So
for,
we're saving $6,000 a year.
yep, for our department, it didn't factor in the time for the finance director.
For my time, it's about $5,000, so you can add that to.
So $11,000 a year.
And Ms. Foglio, with the recent approval of the assistant town accountant, this should also help alleviate any backlog or any overwork.
The other thing I wanted to mention is, back, I think it was in the spring, you had this report done by the Department of Revenue. And when I came on board, Robin handed it to me and asked me to try to start fixing all the things that were brought up. And that is one of the things that is in here, is to streamline the payroll. It focuses more on the payroll and to move to a biweekly payroll. Many communities have already moved to that because it's a quick way of making a savings. But I did notice on your payables, because it's every other week, and I'm sure it was done because it's just not enough time to get everything done, people are missing the ability to take any discounts, and in some cases, they're getting significant fines for being late, and I believe one of them is a percentage, and it's your health insurance.
Insurance, like one of our biggest bills is a 10% late fine.
So, and how often, that leads into another question I had, was how often are when you are processing the warrant payments, are there late payments or you encumber late fees?
So I since I've been here, I've tried to avoid it, but in order for me to avoid it, I'm throwing in extra warrants every week.
Right.
So pretty much out of the last 4 months, we've probably had extra warrants almost every week. Just so that we don't get a 10% fine on a health insurance, which
adds up.
it's
Yeah.
it's $1,000, so it's a big fine. So I'm not gonna take that fine, I'm gonna run another warrant. That's why you're seeing extra little tiny warrants being thrown out there.
Well, we appreciate you being, proactive about that. So basically, we're already doing it, so might as well make it a policy.
Right.
Mr. Singer?
So how long would it take to implement the change?
We were talking about doing on January 1st, and there's a logistical reason for that, because that's when payroll resets. The other is we wanted to have enough opportunity to allow employees to understand what was taking place. There's a lot of confusion when you make that change from weekly to bi-weekly. How does it impact my taxes? And the answer actually is, it doesn't impact what you pay ultimately in taxes. That's what you file with your income tax return. And it is your choice of what you're going to withhold. Tables will adjust to the frequency, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly. But we've also talked, I had Jessica talk to a financial person who's willing to come in, if you want to speak on that.
And do a training for the employees.
The timing meshes with my own. One of the concerns, and the point I was trying to get to, I guess, was it can also be disruptive to employees who, for a long time, have a set way of paying bills, schedules, and a lot of households revolve around frequency of pay. So I think I was going to ask if we could put it off until at least January 1 anyway, to allow notice so that employees could also prepare for the change and prepare for how they're going to adjust their own families and how they structure their bill paying and whatnot. So try to alleviate the
pains of switching?
I don't want to call it that, but.
Well, Ms. Noble?
So I happen to know that January 1st is a Monday this year, and I'm not sure how the town's pay cycles run, but would that January 1st, that Monday, be the very beginning of the cycle for the 2-week pay period?
I don't know if did you come up with a hard set date?
No, it might be, well, we have with the W, we have to factor in, their earnings for the year and whatnot. But their first pay period, their first paycheck would be that week.
Okay.
And
then would they get one
would
2 weeks
still
after
do-
that?
It'll probably end up being the week after that, just because we've got the W-2s and everything to
Right.
try to contend.
And obviously, no one will lose pay.
Right.
And
No.
how will you?
To get the pay period first helps, because then it's an easier transition.
Have you decided how you're going to notify the town employees? Will you be putting something in their pay stub, in their mail, in their email? How are we going to do this so it transitions smoothly?
It should be a multifaceted
Mhm.
approach.
Where we use as many avenues as we possibly can to let
Okay.
people know. And then also inform them that we're offering a training to help them to better understand the process.
Okay.
Were the employees notified about this meeting to talk about this as well, including the unions? I know this was a scheduled appointment.
Not,
Some of them are aware, but we didn't put out any official.
I've had conversations with a number of them. I think they're just waiting to hear whether or not
Okay.
it's going to go forward or not.
I just know that making decisions such as changing locations of offices or starting that discussion, there's been talk and about not including, or at least making employees aware of what's happening, so to make sure we want to keep everyone in the loop, but I'm sure things like this spread fast.
I would hope that each department head would also speak with all their own employees about the impending changes.
We have had the discussion at the department head meeting.
Okay, good.
So that's, I'm comfortable to hear that. Ms. Lorenz, do you anticipate a lot of issues with impact bargaining over this?
It would surprise me if there was impact bargaining. Because there is not an impact on the actual amount of pay, but certainly frequency may trigger impact bargaining. We'll have to
Fingers
see.
crossed, nothing would surprise us.
No,
But from the point you say, Ms. Lorenz, that the town has a strong position on that, strong
Yes.
case, that it's within our management rights.
I believe so.
And recommended by the state.
All right. What are the wishes of the board then? In regards to approving biweekly payroll as well as weekly warrants?
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion?
Second?
Motion is second. Discussion. Any discussion?
Just that we are going to do things with at least the January 1 start, so we will make sure there is time. Employees can be notified, they can let their families know. I just want to make sure this is done with as little impact on the employees or disruption to their lives as possible.
And I appreciate you all taking being proactive in offering at the workshop so people can adjust with all facets of it. All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes.
All right.
Thank you very much for all your work on this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's always nice when we can tell the town we're saving them $11,000.
We'll take it anywhere we can get it.
You betcha.
We'll now move on to new business. And item number 1 is the police department request for a 4th sergeant. Ms. Graber?
Yes, sir. As you're aware, the police department has indicated numerous times for the need for a 4th sergeant. During the police chief process, the board approved requesting a civil service list to fill the sergeant position depending on who was promoted to chief. Chief Maxfield would like to give Gary Wood the assignment of 4th sergeant for 8 weeks or so until the list comes out. Patrolman Wood is not eligible for the permanent position as he did not take the test. Thus, this is truly temporary and would provide him an opportunity to get management experience. No action from civil service would be needed. The board has not officially voted to fill the 4th sergeant position, and that's the main reason why this is being brought to you tonight. So,
Thank you, Ms.
Sergeant.
Sergeant, Chief Maxfield. Chief Maxfield, could
Is
you?
here
Yeah.
to also answer questions and add some more information.
Yes, Mr. Singer.
So just one of the comments I want to make is, from everything I'm hearing, what we're discussing tonight is we're not expanding our police department. If I understand correctly, we're actually currently short, 2 sergeants. So we're trying to just get one of the 2 that we're short back.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So if you want to start the discussion, please go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, it's basically just backfilling my position is what I'm asking to do. As far as Gary Wood, we presently don't have any supervision on midnights. He is the senior officer. He is actually the senior officer of the department. And one of the things that we haven't been doing, excuse me, over the last 20 years is career development for our employees, taking senior people, placing them in leadership positions so that we can assess their skills and ability, maybe give them some guidance and direction. And I think it's important because what it creates is it's good for the department that you have senior people acting like or thinking like supervisors, and ultimately that benefits the town. So if we can place them in that role to fill the position, somebody that I can hold accountable for what's going on there, I think it's a good idea. So, and that, we anticipate the civil service list to come out sometime in January, early January, and I'll be back before you with the process at that point.
Chief, so you said that since we have 2 open positions, you're looking to fill just one of those?
Well, one of our sergeants is out, Sergeant Dowd, who was injured, so he's not available. We used to have 5 sergeants, we only had 4 for the last several years. At some point, maybe we'll be having that discussion down the road. But I'm not filling Sergeant Down positions because he's a detective sergeant, so the detective and the court officer and the lieutenant are kind of picking up those duties right now while he's out injured, so.
Did you put together the organizational chart?
I do have one, would you like that?
Absolutely.
Okay, may I approach?
Please.
Yes,
All information is welcomed and appreciated,
thank you,
in
Chief.
court.
especially flow charts.
May I approach the bench?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what you have before you is just the organization as it looks right now. And you can see the open sergeant's position there. And the ones highlighted in blue are patrol. So sergeant has, 3 or 4 people that he's responsible for. And then, of course, Sergeant Dowd is responsible for the court officer, who's also the public records officer, and the detective. So we would just be looking to backfill into that open position.
Now, for the 11 to 7 o'clock shift, Chief, what are the benefits of having a sergeant on that shift?
Well, we need somebody to make decisions at 2 a.m. on the street. Sergeants, they're not admin people, they're line supervisors. They're uniformed guys on the road, answering calls just like the patrol officers. So they perform all those functions, but they also, make decisions that need to be made in the absence of leadership, other leadership.
Do you want to explain your second page?
Okay, that one's a little more, so what we've been finding as of late, if you look at where it says how the week was scheduled, on a normal scheduled, this is just 1 week. That's what the schedule looks like. If you can see all the people, usually we have 3 people, sometimes 2, because we've lost that 5th sergeant. That would have been where you see 2 people working. Another sergeant would have made 3 people in any given shift, so that we would have supervision 24/7. So if you go to the right and say where it says what happened during the week, if you look at sick time, those in training, those on vacation, those floated to another shift, all of that movement, and then go down to the bottom and how the week ended up looking, what we're experiencing now is 2 officers on patrol 24/7 for the week because of all of this other time, which is the bare minimum that we run at any given time. So we have some challenges, with personnel that we're going to have to discuss for next year's budget.
It looks like, just in that 1 week, you had 48 hours of overtime.
Yes, sir, we did. And if I may, what's not on your sheet, the town administrator had asked me, just this fiscal year, from July 1st to November 4th, that period, we the town spent $27,010.42 filling open shifts. That, just a 4-month period. We have float officers. Float officers are officers who we get to move from their assigned shift to fill holes when somebody is sick or somebody's on vacation or somebody's at training. So we did that in that same period, July to November, 31 times. So if you take an average to fill an overtime shift, it costs about $493 if you take the lowest patrolman and the highest sergeant and you do an average. If we had to fill that, that would have been $15,283. So we obviously consider that a savings because we're able to move. Where we are now, because we're at 18 people, we have 2 floats. If we go back to 19 people, we can in effect have 3 floats by contract. So I have a third person that I can move and sort of plug and play to where I need. But this number, much like the dispatcher, I think, and we're still researching it, we're going to be spending about $80,000 in overtime for a $55,000 job. So, again, I've been working with the town administrator. We've been talking about things that we're going to propose in the next budget, that not asking for any additional monies, but we think that the addition of another officer next budget time for the next fiscal year could probably reduce that significantly.
And that includes filling the sergeant position and then also another officer.
Another officer, yes.
So bringing it to just non-detectives and non-corps officers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, to 11 officers, 4 sergeants, 1 detective, 1 court officer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr.
So
Singer?
is it what you're not proposing yet, but saying you might propose down the road?
Well,
Is
I
very
am, sir,
much-
but down the road, I will be.
Down the road.
You can, yes.
It
Yes, sir.
is very much like what we just went through with fire, where we were paying so much in overtime that we wound up actually saving money by bringing in additional firefighters and just paying them salaries, which was less than the overtime. And we wound up giving the townspeople more personnel, better coverage for the same or less money than we were already spending. So believe me, if this is it, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, exactly, sir, and that's what it is. And I did steal that from my counterparts, like Chief Cloutier and Deputy Chief Knopf have been awesome with helping with this kind of thing. We're now keeping track of this, and one of the first things I did after you appointed me was, we have technology in our building that we pay for that we haven't been using. And what this new technology and the use of it has allowed us to do is to start pulling up numbers like this. We can actually see where we're spending money, how we're spending money, and this was kind of an eye-opener that, you know, this number just after 4 months, $27,000, when we hire a patrolman, bottom step without benefits would be $55,000, so you add another 17 or 18,000, you're up to about 80,000, so that's where we are. And again, like you said, Mr. Singer, we think it's a benefit because we'll get another body to put out on the street.
Well,
Go. Move.
Come on.
Hello.
I can only do this so long.
Yeah.
Thankfully, no one can see it.
Chief, can you stand up and just move?
thank you. Sorry about that. So, it's good to hear that you have extra money, and probably this conversation might be a little premature. Just make sure that you work with the finance committee and our finance team to see exactly where we are in the financial state, because, you know, obviously, we've had some troubles with some very tight budgets over the past couple of years now. Just make sure that, you know, if it's in there, that's great. I just want to make sure that it is.
Yeah, I would do anything, like I said, I've been working very closely with the town administrator, and I've had meetings with Donna, who is just excellent with anything that we've needed. So we'll be sure when I come in front of you that we have all our I's dotted and our T's crossed.
For the sergeant at the midnight shift, what kind of decisions, just for my curiosity, would be made by just a sergeant?
Well, depending on the night, but a fatal accident, a drunk driving arrest. Police work has become so complex, and we have junior people, other than Gary Wood. Generally, it's a junior shift. Guys with not a lot of experience end up there. So we need somebody who can make decisions, again, in the absence of senior leadership. And our sergeants, as you all know, they're rock stars, road warriors with master's degrees and 20 years' experience. They should have capes and wear big S's on their chest. They're just excellent. And not a lot gets done without them. So it's imperative for me to have accountability to make sure that I have a supervisor when I'm not in the building. And like I said, I'd love to be here 24/7, but I have to eat and sleep too. So a sergeant allows me to, go home at night knowing that if something bad happens, the right decisions are being made to, reduce liability both for the department and the town.
Okay, through the chair.
Ms. Noble?
Could you tell me a little bit about Officer Wood and why you chose him for this position?
He is the senior member of the department, what we call Badge 1. He was there before all of us. He was the detective, probably 20 years, 20, 25 years anyway. So he's very experienced. He's very knowledgeable about the town. Again, because he's been here so long, he's one of those people that a lot of the younger guys go to for guidance and directions. Even as a young sergeant here, when I was promoted 18 years ago, a lot of times I would go to him for advice. He's a good man, and we'll be losing him to retirement, I'm sure, before too long. But I think that he's the right person in the interim, somebody I trust, somebody I know that the rest of the sergeants and command staff trust to make the right decisions.
And is he amenable to this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does this come with a change in pay? Is he
Yes,
paid as
sir.
sergeant?
It's about $180 a week. It's a 15% bump by contract. And so it would be roughly 8 to 10 weeks, depending on when we get the list and how soon we can do the process.
Is there any union impacts with this? Or
No,
are you
because
senior on
he's the
board?
senior most member of the department, there's no issues with the union.
Okay.
What are the wishes of the board then?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Singer?
I would move to approve the chief's request to make, is it Officer or Patrolman Wood, acting sergeant for the 8 to 10 week period needed?
I think the action we're looking to take is to fill the 4th sergeant position.
It's a temporary,
Will be both, okay.
in order, okay, fine, everything I just said,
And
in order to, and to fill the 4th sergeant position.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any discussion? I know in previous talk of the board over the years is that there's been too many chiefs and not enough Indians. I feel comfortable with your, reasoning is that I feel there's a balance in our department right now.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. The police department works very hard, and we're trying to make changes, positive changes, good, good for the department, good for the town. And we're doing the best we can with our people and making sure that we get the most out of, their skills and abilities.
I, for one, can say, just in the personal interactions I've already had with the chief, going to MassDOT and other things we've worked on, I've already seen in just this short time, some very positive change in just the overall feeling around the department, the culture and everything else is just, I'm very happy, it's been very positive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
sir.
And also information like this is very appreciated.
Oh, yes.
Having everything concisely, having a snapshot of the week, having a flow chart, love it. Thank you.
Full disclosure, the town
And-
administrator said that would be a good idea. I would love to take credit, sir, but I have to give credit where credit is due. She knew you'd be asking for it, so.
And if I
Thank you.
if I might add, as you go forward, as you use the new technology there at the police department, and you realize where the money's going, if you could, on occasion, come here and update the board on the finances of the police department and how things are rolling out, I would really appreciate that as we move forward.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here for you guys. I'll do anything you need except sing.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
Yes, and not just where the money is going, but the money is coming, which, as you know, in the past was an issue.
Yes.
Right, and to mirror what we're asking the police department, the fire department to do, is as we increase the staff, seeing the different balances of overtime versus filling shifts, and just, seeing how, new members, and this also goes for dispatch, seeing the actual savings and what the numbers actually look like, because it's easy to say it, but having that hard information, at least rests our minds.
Yeah, like I said, the technology that we have now, TriTech, we've been paying $15,000 a year for, and we haven't used it as many years, 15 years. So I've assigned Sergeant Mason, who is a graduate of Nichols College in accounting, to temporarily today to get all of this straightened out, the finances, the detail billing, all of that. We've collected to date, as of last week, about $160,000 of detail money, $20,000 or $30,000 of it over a year old.
Wow.
And so we're doing the best we can to
More good news.
yeah.
That's tremendous. Thank you so much for doing that, and please thank Officer Mason as well.
Yeah,
His hard
and
work is appreciated.
Also, Mara Jackson, on loan from the Board of Health, has filled in admin. She's been doing a fantastic job as well, doing that. And so, like I said, we got a group effort, and we're trying to get, full accountability for everything that we can collect, and at some point, there will be a drop-off, and I've talked to Donna about that, that, there are just some monies that go back 3, 4, 5 years that, we may not be able to collect, but we continue to do that as much as we possibly can.
If you could, for me, at year's end, can you come back here and tell us how much you have brought into the department?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anything you need, yep.
And just to piggyback on that, an update on the whole situation, the whole finance situation over there with the details as well.
Absolutely.
Just before he leaves, since he's given you such an update, a nice, well-rounded update, he's also, they have been doing the interviews for his administrative assistant. They've got it down to 3 people, and they're going to be moving forward. So I'm hoping to bring you an appointment at your next meeting in 2 weeks.
That will
Wonderful.
certainly be helpful.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So he's moving right along, filling the gaps and making sure everything's moving very well. So I've been pleased with this performance.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Please say aye.
Everybody stand up and say aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you very much, Chief, we appreciate
All
it.
right, have a good evening.
So we will see you on the 28th for the goals and objectives.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yep. Oh, I have a big packet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We will now move on to item number 2 under new business, and that is longevity. Ms. Craver?
Yes. At the special town meeting held October 16th, Article 8, Personnel Bylaw Amendment Benefits Longevity was approved. The article states, to see if the town will vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 108A, and in accordance with the recommendation of the Personnel Board to amend as follows the portion of the Personnel Bylaw appearing as General Code Classification Plan, Section 220-4, as most recently amended by vote under warrant Article 14 of the May 16, 2016 Annual Town Meeting by adding the following new section. Longevity, as of every July 1st, following completion of the applicable minimum number of years of continuous service set forth below, any eligible employee covered under this bylaw and still employed by the town shall be eligible for an annual longevity payment not to be added to the base according to the terms set forth below. And you see the terms, the additional language states, such increases shall not be cumulative Rather, for example, an employee having completed 15 years continuous service shall receive a total additional 400 per year, rather than 200 plus 400, until the July 1st following completion of 20 years continuous service, at which point the employee would receive an additional total of 600 per year, not 400 plus 6. So do I have additional? We received 2 requests for longevity pay. In a discussion with the HR director, we were both on the fence as to the effective date, which should take place, but agreed it does read July 1st. I reached out to personnel chairman, board chairman, who assumed it would be the following July during the next fiscal budget. I'm bringing this to the board for direction.
Thank you, Ms. Craver. First, before we go into discussion about this, has any people affected by this sent any correspondence to the board for review or any advocation for this?
The only correspondence we've gotten is 2 people, 2 employees who have submitted for it. And their understanding was that it was going to be this year. I do want to state that this was originally for the May meeting. So it was anticipated that it would begin July 1st. It was not voted, came back in October. And in October, it was approved. It's kind of second go-around. We used the language, the Personnel Board, you put forth the language from the May town meeting, so there was no designation that it would start this year or if it would really start the next year. I think the employees were hoping, and it was their intention, that it would begin this year because they had started at May and they came back in October. You certainly could wait until the next July 1st because it wasn't voted until October, but it felt like it was at least worth coming back to ask you what you would like to do.
Ms. Craver, what is the financial impact if we were to approve that tonight? Just to steal everyone's thunder.
That's what I wanted to know.
I don't think it's in the memo.
It's not.
Don't think we did put it in the memo. I believe at the, and I just saw Jessica walk out, I believe it's about $7,000.
7,000.
That sounds right. I think I remember a figure of somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000. Wasn't a tremendous impact on the town, but enough that we couldn't just.
Right.
If you decided to give it to them this year, there is some funding in the contract obligations, HR piece
Okay.
that we could use.
Here's the other thing. If we did do that, how would we then roll it out? Would it be in their next pay cycle or the one after that? We would need to have some sort of schedule for that.
It would depend on the vote that the board did. So hypothetically, if you decided to approve it tonight for this year, my recommendation would be that you approve it as of the date of the town meeting and whatever their date was at that, if it was 5 years or 10 years.
Yes.
That as of that date, that they would receive it, and then they wouldn't receive anything until the following.
The town meeting in October or the
Yes,
town
sir.
meeting in May?
I would say the October town meeting.
Okay,
That's at least meeting them halfway.
okay.
So is this addition to the salary, or is this just a lump sum?
This is in all of the contracts, except for there is nothing in the personnel bylaw, which is why they're asking for it. It is a stipend for longevity. It does not get added to their base, and it is a one-time
So-
Mrs. Singer, did you have something?
amount.
Yeah, I simply wanted to point out that I had had a conversation about this with Ms. Craver, and basically my only concern at that time, and remains, was that whatever the intent was, is what we should go with. So whether the intent was this year or in July is what we should go with. And from what I can gather from conversations I've had, even what I'm hearing now with how this whole thing progressed, I am under the impression that the original intent was this year. So I would have I would be in favor then of moving this through.
The only issue I see with intent is what was the intent of town meeting as well? Did people vote for it with the intent of it beginning next year as it was written? Or,
I'm not sure we went into that at town meeting. I think most of the conversation was, do we want to do this or not?
right,
And it then fell on the select board, and it was the board and personnel and HR, whatever, that initiated this process, and as I'm coming to find, was to get this in place this year. We went through 2 town meetings to get there, so. That's my interpretation of where we are.
I was under the impression that the longevity stipend was something for 2017,
Fiscal years?
for the fiscal year.
For this current year.
Fiscal year 18, yeah. So my question is, if we do the stipend now,
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
You could
Okay.
prorate.
Thank you.
we could prorate it, would
No,
we
it took, you only
then,
needs to move a little.
yeah, would we then do the stipend again
July.
July? So it would be, say, November, and then July, and then it would roll out every
Every July.
July after that. So we'd be playing catch-up a little bit, and then come next July, we would be on target.
Oh, are we really playing catch-up, or if we're simply a couple of months behind on this year? Only 3 months behind for this year.
So it wouldn't be until the next July.
Okay.
So for a motion regarding this, would it also need to include a date or time specified? Just a lump sum, or?
Do we need, do we need a motion that was voted by town meeting?
I think that what you need to do is to provide us direction, whether or not, so I think you would take a vote. If you wanted to do it this year, I would ask you to vote to approve the stipends as of fiscal year 18.
So July 1st?
I thought we were just talking about fiscal 17, which is this year.
We're actually
We're
in
in
fiscal
18
18
right
right
now.
For fiscal 18,
It's,
Wow, okay.
fiscal year 17,
My,
18.
my brain is everywhere right now,
So it's calendar year
17.
17, but,
so, right, but in July
Fiscal
we went
year,
to 18, yeah.
right.
It's been a long day.
And
So-
if we were to approve it, then, Robin, would you need us to give you a deadline as to when the stipend would be rolled out?
I don't think so. I think we would just inform the departments to submit,
Mhm.
and we would just put it through.
I would then entertain a motion to provide direction on assessing the longevity as of July 1st, beginning of fiscal year 18.
So moved.
I thought we were gonna do it as of October 1st.
So are you saying it would be prorated for 3/4 of a year?
I'm confused.
No, I
We're
think,
going back
I
to
think what
July.
you were saying is for fiscal
Yeah,
18.
Yeah.
Right, which is
Okay.
back to July.
Which is
And then
July 1st.
probably what you would want to do is add to your motion based on, well, never mind, you could just start it as of July 1st. And
Just-
then whoever's there, July
Mhm.
1st, 2017.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Is the motion clear to
Just
everyone?
keeping it simple. I do want to just disclose that I am a part of that, so
Can you
I'm not
disclose?
advocating to myself. I
Mr.
provide
Chair, I want to
them.
amend my motion.
I just want to say, you know.
Would you just, which bracket do you fall in? Is it the first one or the second one?
The first one, the first one.
Noted. Right, is there any further discussion
I'm under 15 years.
for now? All right, seeing no discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you very much. All right,
Thank you, sir. I think you've made many department heads who have not had this benefit, while everyone else has brought them into equity, so thank you.
well, we're lucky to have such good department heads, so,
I think it also softens the blow of going to a biweekly payroll
for some.
for some.
Can I quote you on that?
No.
We will now
Okay.
move on to old business, and our item under old business is a special one-day liquor license application. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. As requested, we've been reviewing the special one-day liquor license application and have made some recommended changes. Selectman Singer had made recommendations, as well as stating if the event sponsor and venue are the same, or any of its associated businesses, owners, shareholders, location, et cetera, no more than the set number of days for requests for special licenses can be approved in a calendar year. If the event sponsor is different from the venue, then each sponsor would have to make the request. We also forwarded the application to police, fire, and building department for review, and also asked how long it takes them to review an application. The fire department said it takes about 30 minutes to an hour to review an application for a new location. It would take longer depending on if they needed more information. They review the primary location of the event and the NAFTA 72 and 25 reports. They also ensure the crowd manager paperwork is current, as well as any other fire department jurisdictional issues needing to be discussed or explored. The police department looks at the following criteria: what the event is, example, is it a wedding? Who is having the event? Where is the event being held? How many people are attending the event? What the hours are of the event, and what they have, that they have a tip certified people pouring, serving the alcohol, and if police details are required. The process takes anywhere from a half an hour to an hour or longer if more information is needed. The building commissioner has recommended removing the phrase "one day" due to some licenses being approved for more than one day, because he needs time to review the location of the event, and if a site plan and/or other items are needed per the zoning bylaws, he would require 2 to 4 weeks to process his portion of the license request. Discussion at the board's meeting was to possibly change the fee structure such as tier pricing. We would ask the board for direction on this. If you look at the next page, you have, we've done a red line or reformatted so you can see what's added and what's taken out.
So you're gonna make it a special license, or we're gonna make it a special alcoholic beverage license application?
It would be a special license alcohol beverage. Special license for alcoholic beverages. So we would take the 1 day out. So we'd be calling it a special license instead of a 1 day license.
That makes total sense, because even a one-day license ends up being 3 days.
Correct.
So you're gonna make it a special 3-day?
First, I want to thank you, Mary, and Ross, who worked on this. I know it was one thing that we've been working on for a while. It's been a pretty heated debate over this, and it's always good to review our structures on our applications.
And Mary has done the heavy lifting of this and going through it and checking with the ABCC to make sure that we're being compliant with any changes. So I appreciate the work she's done on this.
And what I like is the ability for each department head to sign off on, to recommend an approval or denial, and to give their reasonings. I do like that, and there's a checklist. And looking at all the other permit applications, I think it makes sense. It helps give more details to us with that. One thing I noticed on the costs, it seems like at minimum it's 30 minutes for fire department, 30 minutes for police. I imagine at least 30 minutes for Ms. Devlin, and then probably at least 30 minutes for the building commissioner. That's 2 hours worth of work, and we currently charge $50 for a license. Did we do a study on what other towns are?
We'd be glad to do that if you'd like that before you make any decisions on the fee structure.
But I think the layout and changes to applications I'm liking, especially adding 7, 8, and 9 to the front page of the application. Number 9, though, the selectman reserves sole right to accept or reject application.
You have that right.
Best interest.
You probably want to put that in there.
So that is our current right. We wouldn't, that wouldn't incur any legal gray areas.
Completely your discretion.
That's, I'm sure, in there because of certain past instances we've had regarding massive parties. I'll leave it at that.
Raves, if you will.
Maybe.
So again, what we've done is try to put your comments in. We believe that these forms are living documents, and we can always make adjustments as you are reviewing your policies. So we want to always be progressing and be better in the things that we do. So these are the things that we're putting forward, the recommendations we're putting forward now.
Would it be more transparent if we structure the 30 days per year just to have 10, not counting days before and after for pickup and delivery?
I think it's very simple the way you have it now with the recommendation, and that language is right out of the ABCC
Okay.
on the before and after,
Mhm.
and it's required, so I wouldn't confuse that. I think what you want to do is, because the people are told that.
Mhm.
Right.
And now that we've really made clear of what those days are and that they do count towards whatever day limit you have.
And I think also changing the phrase one day license
Yeah.
helps.
So if they're
alleviate
doing a Saturday and a
confusion.
Sunday, or a Friday and a Saturday, then they've got 4 days
Right.
they're using up.
What I found really nice was when it was received by a particular department.
Yes.
Received in the fire department on, such and such date,
Mhm.
approved or denied, approval or denial, and then date completed.
Mhm.
That to me is
Agreed.
very important,
Mhm.
because it allows us to know if it's being held up unnecessarily. And if we see a pattern, why is it being held up at this point? Perhaps we'll need to look at the structure of the department to see if they need more personnel to process these in a timely manner.
That's true.
Hmm.
We did have conversations about whether or not we wanted to put timelines that departments had to get back to you in a certain amount of time.
Mhm.
We decided not to do that for now and to try and do exactly what you're saying, is
Yeah.
track it.
Yeah,
I think we really do need to track it, and at some point, we may want to think about saying, okay, we've noticed that it's taking an extraordinary amount of time, we want to see what we can do to streamline the process.
What is the finite number of days that they're actually given for like an active license before it like expires? Because I'm kind of confused. Like if they're given the license, is it like not counting the day that their beverages arrive and the day that, like not the before and after, how long does their license last
does-
for?
So if they want it on Saturday, the board will approve the Saturday license, but they will approve the day before and the day after to allow for them to have the alcohol delivered, and then for the day after the event to have it picked up. And that constitutes 3 days
Okay,
out of the 30.
but then if
Technically-
they ask for Saturday and Sunday, it would be 4 days, so they would deliver it on Friday, have the event Saturday, Sunday, and Monday would be pickup.
okay.
And they have up to 30 days, including those before and after days, so basically,
10 days, basically, they
10
can
days.
actually sell.
unless they do 1 day, then 28 days and then 1 day,
You never know.
but.
Haven't seen that one yet.
No, not yet.
Haven't approved that one.
wouldn't approve that one.
Keyword yet.
And the license
Yeah.
is,
You know.
I'd like my special one-day liquor license for 28 days. Yeah.
which is why we're taking out that one-day language.
All right.
All right.
Then we'll do your special
What
3-day.
are these board's wishes then with approving the changes as presented, saving the fee structure probably for future research?
I like it. I would make that motion, Mr. Chair. And I like the fact that, as Ms. Craver pointed out, it is a living document, so we can subtract or add as necessary in editing meeting going forward as we make this document even better.
Yeah. And I would, is there a second?
There's a second.
For discussion, I would ask, if this passes, to have our office just keep track, ask people applying what their thoughts are, asking the department heads what their thoughts are and the changes, and just see what their feedback is.
I'd also like, in, I don't know, maybe another 3 or 4 months as we move forward with this application, I would like to track the time on them as to when they come in and when they go back out.
Just to keep an eye on that we have that information.
Exactly, just in case it ever comes back again at us.
Well, it would be nice to know. Well, it actually took 4 weeks, or, hey, that was done in 2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we do put on the application that they have to allow for, they need to give it to us ahead of time, enough for 4 weeks. So
Correct.
that we do give the building commissioner enough time to be able to process and not kind of crunch into what
Mhm.
the review he's got to do.
And that seems
Right.
like that's the worst case
And that's
scenario,
reasonable.
when you have a new site, so the building commissioner can take time to actually go there, review it, and make sure there's no safety concerns.
And if it's something that's been repeated, such as one of our churches
Mhm.
has.
That's what I
something,
was
but,
thinking, yeah.
It doesn't take that long.
Right.
It's good also, because then if anyone ever comes to this board and says, hey, been 8 weeks, what's going on, we could come back and we could say, well, actually, no, it's been 4 or 3 or 2, because we're kept apprised of the application process.
Right.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you very much, and once again, thank you, Ms. Craver and Ms. Devlin for all that work. You know, it's always good to, make things better, make things easier for everyone.
Make sure Mary heard you.
What's that?
And me.
Thank you, Mary. All right, we will now move on to committee reports. Does anyone have any committee reports?
I would like to discuss the meeting at the Mass DOT office last week.
Please do, Ms. Noble.
Last week, myself, Robin Craver, Selectman Singer, Chief Maxfield, and the interim planning director,
Bill Scanlon.
Bill Scanlon, thank you very much, met with Treehouse Brewing, as well as multiple members of the DOT. Pardon me?
No, yeah,
Oh, okay. It was a well-attended meeting. Treehouse was there along with an engineer. We discussed in depth the issues with the traffic, the accidents that have been down there. Chief Maxfield brought us information about, I think, a half a dozen accidents that had happened in the vicinity of Treehouse due to people pulling out, turning left, making U-turns in the middle of the road, and basically causing traffic concerns. We talked about the idea of having a light to possibly slow traffic down, and that's not going to work because a traffic light at that particular spot would actually cause more accidents. The line of sight isn't clear enough, it would cause fender benders. So it was decided that they would come up with a two-prong approach to addressing the traffic issues there at Treehouse. One in the immediate would involve more signage and more personnel.
When you say personnel, those detail officers, or is that their personnel directing traffic and parking?
I think it was both. It was both. Because we cannot have our officers pulled off of their regular routes to go down there on a particularly busy Friday or Saturday when the lines are getting very long. And in the long term, I think what they were amenable to and what we discussed is changing the geography.
So having something more, sort of a straight intersection, some sort of.
Changing the geography in such a way that perhaps there would be another exit further up the road or in a different location so that the line of sight was a little better, and stopping people from making those unnecessary or illegal U-turns. I have to say, Treehouse has been just wonderful in working with the town and working with the police department and now working with the DOT. Ms. Craver also brought up the issue of the Route 20 corridor and the fact that it is the Mass Pike Plan B, as Mr. Singer stated, and that we do need to look at broader issues regarding the traffic, the speed, and what the town's going to do about that. I can also let you know that at the planning board meeting last week, when they were discussing the medical marijuana dispensary, the issue of traffic in the center of Charlton also came up as a very heated topic.
Thank you.
I think Ms. Noble pointed out, I was very happy with the seriousness that everyone took at that meeting. MassDOT took it very seriously. They don't want to have another issue like we've had down by the Barkwood area of 20. And like Ms. Noble said, Treehouse, from the moment they came here, they've tried to be the good neighbor. And there are so many ways that could have gone. And I can't stress enough how nice it was to walk in that room and have Treehouse be like, no, and still going the good neighbor route. We want this done right for the safety of everyone and for their business and their own customers. It was I walked out of very, very amazed that everyone was on the same page from the first minute of that meeting to the end.
I would have to wholeheartedly agree with that. You knew just from their attitude and from the statements they made and the people that they brought to the table that this is an issue that they're taking extraordinarily seriously. And they're going to be a good business for the town going forward.
Thank you both for attending, thank you, Ms. Graver, for attending. I'm glad that, the discussion has been started, and it seems like there's some good actual direction to take this.
And even on the timing front, as Ms. Noble pointed out, there's the short-term and the long-term plans, and if I'm not mistaken, the short-term, I hate to say fix, but for the short-term, we're looking like within 2 weeks to get something very quickly in
Yes.
place.
It's good to be proactive before something bad happens. So,
Yep.
any other committee reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to our student select persons report. Ms. Grandalski, please take it away.
All right, so in the arts at Shepherd Hill right now, the show choir is attending the Oliver Ames Bay State Show Choir Competition / Festival this weekend. The band recently won first at their NESPA competition with a 97.0, and they're off to nationals this weekend. In New Jersey, November 18th from 9 to 4 is the annual craft fair, and that actually brings in like the most amount of money for the music department. It's like extremely popular. Last year we covered the entire first floor and part of the second floor with vendors.
You said that's November 18th?
Yes,
Okay. And what time would that be?
9 to 4.
Very good.
The tickets just went on sale for the Holiday Spectacular. There's a Friday night show and a Saturday matinee. For sports, there's a football game November 23rd at Tantascwa, and the junior varsity cheerleaders recently won first in their division, and varsity placed second and will now be moving on to regionals. Other things going on, the junior fundraiser ends tomorrow for Yankee Candles. The Art Honor Society kids did their annual pumpkin decorating contest last Thursday during lunch. All the students in the school get to vote, and the winners get prizes. So that was exciting. Next Monday, the Global Awareness kids are going to Chinatown in Boston. And Mr. Shepherd Hill is coming up on November 17th. And last but not least, parent-teacher conferences were last Thursday, and report cards were issued last Friday.
Always a good time of year.
Yes.
Any questions for the student select persons? Mr.
So-
Singer?
The Oliver Ames, that's a showcase, right?
Yeah.
Is that open to the public? Do we know if people can buy tickets? to it?
Yes.
Okay, so then my message to the people of Charlton, buy tickets. Wherever the camera is, buy tickets, because if you haven't seen these kids sing and heard this band, it's an evening out in the town. It is like nothing you've seen before. I go to them all. I might have missed a few, but I go to most. But it is an amazing group of kids in the show choir groups, and the bands, and the talent, and to actually go to these things, you'd be amazed. You honestly feel like you just got an evening out in the town, entire evening's worth of performances. It's a sight to see. If you can go, I urge everyone to go.
Thank
You
you.
gotta see it at least once.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Noble?
Just one thing, when you have announcements about different events going on at the schools, like the craft show, like the performances, you are more than welcome to send them in ahead of time, and we can put them under our announcement section so that Joe can announce, or Mr. Chairman can announcement at the beginning of the meeting, and then you can reiterate and encourage people to go during your report as well.
Absolutely. You stole the idea right out of my head. If you want to, if it doesn't make it on the agenda, please feel free, whenever if I ask for, if there's any other announcements, please feel free to share those then.
Okay.
I think most people tend to tune in at the top of the show.
I think so.
So we obviously, some great events, we want to be able to advertise as much as we can for them.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing is, I'm not sure if we've ever asked the students' select person to provide it to our office so that we could get it up on cable running. I know you have an education channel. I don't know if the education channel runs the things that are going on at the school. But quite oftentimes people in town are watching ours to see what's going on. So I know people, especially like the craft and the performances, people would like to know about those.
Oh, yeah.
So you could send that if you wanted to Mary Devlin,
Okay.
even after your presentation. You could just, or make a second sheet of what you give, and then just leave it with us, and then Mary could put it on after your report.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Any other questions for the student select person? Thank you, Ms. Grandalski. We'll now move on to the town administrator's report. Ms. Graver?
Thank you. I wouldn't tell him what I'm talking about, because I don't want him to talk about it, or I won't have anything to talk
Yeah.
about. Anyway.
Do you have any announcements you want to?
No. Green Communities designation. Charlton submitted the grant designation application and has been approved to use the first round of grant funding of $166,570 to fund energy conservation measures in municipal facilities, including the police department, activity center, and town hall. The energy conservation measures are funded are a boiler replacement, weatherization, energy management system, and an electric vehicle charging station. Once DOER receives the signed contracts, which they did, they also let us know today that we have the signed contracts back, and we are ready to start our first project, which will be the boiler replacement at the activity center.
Wonderful news.
Thank you. And I just, again, like to put a shout out to Kara on her work with, and Kurt on the Green Communities grant. FY18 Risk Management Grant. The FY18 Risk Management Grant application has been submitted for $10,000. Again, I want to thank Kara for her work on coordinating this grant. $525 will be used for CO detectors in 3 police cruisers. The balance of $9,475 will be applied to the purchase of IP-based video monitoring, surveillance, and recording in the police department.
A quick question, Ms. Graver, is that carbon monoxide?
Yes, it is.
Nice, thank
I
you.
think you may have seen in the newspaper recently that there's been some issues with some of the cars.
Yep, the
So-
Fords.
Yes.
Hmm.
Glen Echo Improvement Association. We've been notified by the Glen Echo Improvement Association of a drawdown of 1 to 2 inches per day until a level of 4 feet below the spillway is achieved. The water will be maintained at that level until a hard freeze after the temperatures have been below 15 degrees for a period of 5 to 7 days, or after January 15th, 2018. The lake will then be allowed to return to its normal level. This is under the control of the Conservation Commission. Tax classification hearing, has been scheduled for your next meeting on November 1st. The Board of Assessors will be here to present any questions. I also have 2 other things. I received information today from Carl Ekman, who is our Emergency Management Director. MEPA is requesting that a preliminary damage assessment be completed by each community by Friday, November 10th. That assessment covers the wind and rain storm that occurred on October 29th and 30th. I believe that the governor may be looking at possibly reimbursing some cities and towns for damage.
Good news.
And I also sent you an update regarding the Gulfwood Road and the beavers. I know you probably saw today's newspaper article. I'm anticipating that Todd and Jerry will be here at your next meeting to give you an update on where that is. At this point, I believe that the highway superintendent is looking at some additional engineering, and Todd has been working diligently with the Southbridge, with trying to get the beavers permit, which was not successful, as you know.
Yeah.
So I have not made a request of Southbridge at this point as far as a permanent agreement to try, until we can figure out what works this year, until we can do that, then I would ask that we have some kind of agreement to continue that. But we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the town administrator?
Just one quick question.
Mr. Singer.
So Glen Echo, there's no issues with that, and that's not the lake that we had been notified about? There's never been an issue with the drawdown?
Those drawdowns, complaints and issues are when the Lake Association wants to go below 4 feet. And 4 feet is safe for all of our lakes and ponds. So that's what they're informing you that they're doing. And as you know, that will not affect any of the abutters. Okay?
Any more questions for the town administrator?
Nope.
Nope.
Seeing none, is there any other business unknown at the time of posting?
Yes.
Ms. Graver?
It's highlighted, so we don't
A
forget.
nice dramatic pause.
Thank you. As you know, we are doing a process for an employee who is out requesting injured on duty, and we are in the process of finding out whether the injury is work-related. That is taking some extensive time due to some of the process. What I would like to do is to make sure that this person, and I believe you're in favor, so that they're not harmed by the length of process, I would like to put that person on paid administrative leave as of tomorrow, so that they will not be in deficit as far as their sick time or leave time or anything.
Noted. What are the wishes of the board?
So moved.
Second?
Motion second for administrative leave. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Nope.
Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Ms. Graver.
Thank you.
Is there any other business unknown at the time of posting?
Got another one? Nope, okay.
Seeing, nope,
No,
no? Are you sure?
She thought about it.
Could you?
I think that's within my authority to be able to do, so I won't bring that up at this point.
Fair enough. Then our next meeting will be November 21st, and I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Motion to go into executive session?
If you could,
After-
Ms. Noble, read the motion for the reasoning why going to executive session.
Executive session under Mass General Law C-30A, Section 21, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body regarding police grievance, highway union, Southbridge landfill litigation, IMA, Casella zoning appeal, if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, and the chair does declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move to roll call vote. Ms. Noble?
Aye.
Mr. Singer?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are now in executive session at 8:03 PM. We will be exiting executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment. Once again, our next regular selectmen's meeting will be November 21st. Have a great night.